Hello friends, and welcome to Mini Messy May. Thanks for being here and watching this video about how I participated this year in Get Messy Art Journal's Messy May. I had created or was inspired to create this little mini journal, and then I decided to use it for Messy May. Messy May is Get Messy Art Journal's month-long challenge that takes place every year, and I've done it in the past, but this is the first time I've done it in such a small scale. I have my kit here in this bin that closes up and has a handle for me to be able to carry it from room to room as I need to. And in each of these little containers, I have the supplies that I'll need to work small in this tiny journal. The first box that I pulled out of my bin contained a bunch of word phrases that I'd cut out from books like Little Women or children's books. And this little container has a bunch of small focal points from magazines and other places that I've been collecting that I can use to add a focal point to my pages. I also have some smaller tools that I can pick out of the box here, and another couple of containers. This one has some items from nature, and this one has a bunch of magazine ephemera that is color-coded. So this is something that I would add to a background layer on the page. And normally these would be bigger if I were working in my standard size art journals, but because this is a mini journal, these are all smaller pieces. So I'm just working on a smaller scale to create those backgrounds. I've included this small letter stencil in my bin here and this baggie of metallic embellished tissue papers, which I kind of like to add as a top layer, or even cut out or punch out one of these metallic circles, which would add a different kind of dimension, some sheen or shine as well as color. And then I have a bunch of stickers. These are all pretty small in scale as well, and I might, even cut them down, remove some of the white borders around the stickers as I'm using them so that they don't take up a lot of room on the page. And I've got some metallic rub-ons here that I thought would add a little bit of interest and some specialness to the pages once I'm finishing them up. And then some scrapbooking supplies that are mostly stickers here as well. This little stamp set comes in handy because the stamps are pretty small, and they also have some word phrases that I can use. This little tin includes some more focal images that I either handmade or that are more like ephemera versus magazine imagery. Also included in this bin, I have some letter stamps that I've already removed that are sitting there with some of my tools. And then I have a few bags that are these vellum bags full of other additional items. This bag is full of mostly florals, either ones that I've created myself or ones that I've cut out. So they might be, fussy cut magazine images. This one has mostly vintage type ephemera that is, useful to create kind of a neutral element to a page. And then this one has more magazine imagery that could either be used as backgrounds or it's a focal point that's fairly small in size that I just haven't cut down to fit into that little bin that I showed you earlier. So when I'm looking through my magazines for elements that I can use in my art journal, I'm not only looking for the large scale images that I can use in my 8x8 ELO sketchbook, I'm also looking for smaller ones that I can use in my mini journals or on smaller art projects that I do, like artist trading cards and postcards. If you watch all the way through, I'll be showing you a page through of the finished mini journal, and you'll see some of these images show up on the pages. And I store all of these things this way in this bin so that if I'm working small, whether it's in a mini journal or on an artist trading card, I know exactly where to find the size of items that I need. To set up my mini journal for Messy May, I added the label to the little tag there, and then I added all the prompts to the inside cover. This little journal is basically a junk journal because it's made of kinds of scraps and such. I also painted some of the pages before I bound the journal so that I'd have backgrounds ready to create on. Before I show you the finished pages, I wanted to just show you a few more of the supplies that I used. This little basket contains some collage materials, including that napkin, some masking tape that I can put down and use as lines to write text in. Of course, I need a glue stick. And this is just random collage. It might be art papers that I've created, or tissue papers, or papers that people have gifted me. I have a little notebook here with a pencil because I took some notes in planning different layouts in the pages. I also have a stencil there, and then these little stencil sponges and applicator that I can use if I need to do any stenciling. And I have a cutting board and an X-Acto knife for cutting out shapes. And of course I have a bunch of pens, drawing pens, gel pens, paint pens, pencils, and colored pencils, my scissors. And I have some Stabilo woodies and some Caran d'Ache Neocolor 2s. I use them as water-soluble media, but I also just use them like crayons to add color. And last but not least, some acrylic paints, probably more than I would ever need to work in this little mini journal, but I always have trouble picking colors. I love so many. I've also got a couple of acrylic inks in there as well. Let me show you the different pages that I created in my mini journal. I pretty much went my own way in following these prompts. I'd watch the mini lessons for inspiration and then take it from there. The first prompt was abandon, and it was kind of a bonus prompt, so that's here on the left side. And the first official prompt was authenticity, and this is a quote from Tanya in The White Lotus, the first season. I just want to skip all the layers and go straight to the crazy. Even though Tanya's kind of messed up as a character, I thought she was one of the more authentic ones. Over here on the left is the prompt swatch. I painted swatches and then I cut stars out of each of the swatches. On the right is draw. So I traced onto vellum one of my tarot cards. The next prompt was derive, and I used some dictionary text and some of my leftover swatches with stars cut out as derivatives of what I just made the day before. This one is aperture. The page on the right is actually a pocket. My quote goes from this page to the next page, or the other side of it, and is about the prompt growth. Growth is accepting all the missing parts of yourself and embracing all that you are. And since it's a pocket, I included a little tag created out of the salvage of my swatch stars. Here on the right is the prompt intuition, and it says, intuition trusts the invisible. Assumption depends on the known. We must embrace the unknown to create anything new. And this spread here is nature, kind of self-explanatory. Here we have mundane, and you can see that I've added one of my little mini ephemera focal points there on the left, as well as some of that metallic tissue paper collage down on the right. This prompt on the left is color, which is just a bunch of colorful collage and some letter stickers. The prompt curiouser features some fussy cut, teeny tiny little imagery from that focal point box. Unleashed on the left is some doodling with some gel pens, and labyrinth is the prompt on the right. On the left is the prompt adjust with a quote about healing from trauma, and core was the prompt for May 16th. On the left here it's keep, as the prompt. I had kept this tag from a cute little shop in Sayulita, Mexico. So for this prompt, I created a little envelope out of one of my art papers so that I can keep it in my mini journal. On the right, the prompt was jump. The centerfold of my mini journal ended up with the prompt sisterhood. I painted the pages a shimmery blue watercolor, laid down a botanical sticker, and then added this illustration of 3 dancing fairies. This page on the left follows the prompt flowy, and I used some water-soluble color sticks from Charvin to create this art paper, and then used it to collage onto that page a background of flowy color. And then I added one of my smaller images from my collection and the stamped word breathe, along with a few stamped butterflies with this tiny little butterfly stamp. The prompt on the right side is torn, and I just put down over the page that was already painted one of those tiny little magazine cutouts and a page of vintage ledger, and then I tore it up and opened it up so that I could see the image underneath it. The prompt for this spread is wobble, and you can see the little skateboarder there. I'm sure I'd be wobbling on a skateboard. I used some more of that flowy art paper from the last set of pages, along with this magazine imagery of palm trees to create the background. Then I glued on my little skater. I mean, it's kind of rude. I'm just grabbing her by the butt. I didn't even notice I was doing that at the time. And then finally stamped in find your balance. The prompt for this spread is season, and it was all about your favorite season of the year, which for me is summer. This spread is all about the prompt rest. The next prompt is intricate, and I added lots of layers of paint and collage, lots of tiny marks, some of those metallic star rub-ons, and this intricately fussy cut figure dancing. And I also added some shimmery watercolor to the globe that's behind her. The next prompt is symbolic. In my collection of magazine focal imagery, I had this tarot card representation in a piece of jewelry that is the tarot card strength. I fussy cut the imagery out. It had like a malachite stone background behind the figure and the lion there, and that way the background that I added this napkin to can shine through. This prompt is elemental, and I have my elements represented there in some ephemera, but this is basically a painted background and some fussy cut imagery. This prompt is presentation, and you can see that I added some stenciling and lots of little dots. This is the prompt pieces, and I took the opportunity to piece together a bunch of wedges of art paper and added some of those metallic rub-ons. This is what I would call a bonus spread because it wasn't in response to any prompt. I just had fun painting some lines and writing out a quote. This spread didn't get inspired by a prompt from Messy May either. Rather, it's inspired by Roxanne Coble's mini journals class, and I'll put a link to that in the description box. The next prompt is textiles, and I did some stitching onto some gingham. And the last prompt in here is confetti. So I created a little pocket using some packing tape and this kind of silly glitter. It kind of looks like confetti to me. I just picked up the glitter with the tape and kind of folded that in half, trimmed it down, and then I stuck it in my sewing machine to sew it up so that it would look like it was stitched into the journal. Then I used two-sided tape at the bottom and on the sides to tape it in to the journal and create the pocket. I used some pieces of this napkin to collage down into the background. Then I adhered the pocket and added my tag. On the reverse side, it says fun and wonder, which is kind of what confetti means to me. So there you have it, Mini Messy May, and I have 6 of these mini journals available for purchase in my Etsy shop. I will put the link in the description box. There are only 6 and I don't necessarily plan to make more. I may create a class instructing how to make these at some point. But if you want to get started right away making your own mini messy pages, pick one up before they sell out. Thanks so much for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe so that you'll get notifications on anything else that I upload to my channel.